Sometimes we have to make uncomfortable decisions or do uncomfortable things to like maybe get us to this place that we absolutely love. And I also tell people that nothing is final except for death, but nothing is final. If you don't like it or it's not right for you, you can just make another decision.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Traveling Therapist. I'm here with Lisa Jellison. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
She is a traveling therapist. She moved to Paraguay and has an amazing story to share with us. So Lisa, I'd like to turn it over to you and just ask, what made you go from just being like your traditional therapist to a traveling therapist?
Right. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking about my story and hopefully inspiring others to do the same. So back in 2017, probably 16, actually, 2016 was like, I was tired of the rat race of, the United States where it's just work, work, work to pay your bills and then maybe take like a week or two of vacation during the year. And Absolutely. I just felt like that was not fulfilling to me anymore. As much as I love my job and I love my life, I just wasn't fulfilled with the idea that I was going to be doing this for the next 30 years until I retired. And then I could go do all the things that I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I decided that I wanted to live in South America. I actually thought Brazil would be where I would choose, but numerous events, which we'll probably talk about, led me to Paraguay. And the cost of living obviously is cheaper. The dollar goes a lot farther. I work less and I travel more.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. So since you alluded to it, I'd love to hear what led up to you choosing that location, and also where is that on the map? Because I'm totally geographically challenged.
That's okay. Actually, a lot of people have not heard of Paraguay. It's not very well-known destination or someplace where tourists are like, oh, I really want to go to Paraguay. Usually because Paraguay is right next, we're like sandwiched. We're in between Brazil, Bolivia, and Argentina. Okay. And so most of the time people are probably choosing Brazil or Argentina for Patagonia or Buenos Aires. But I'll tell you the backstory if you want to hear.
Yes, I'd love to. Absolutely.
So back in 2016, I had a foreign exchange student, and my husband and I at the time, I'd always wanted to host a foreign exchange student. I thought that I love learning about culture, and I just thought that sounded so fun. And we had a foreign exchange student from Brazil, and it was one of the best years. In my own, I learned a lot about myself in that year too, because a lot of times we kind of live our lives thinking, oh, I don't have time for that, or I can't afford that, or we have these excuses that aren't really excuses. They're just we just have things we're stuck in our box.
Yes, these stories we tell ourselves how we're supposed to live our life. Exactly.
And I had this foreign exchange student, and he wanted to do all these things. He wanted to have these experiences before he went back to Brazil. And so I wanted to make his year the best. I want him to have all these great times. We ended up doing a lot of things that I myself had never done because of those stories. Oh, I can't afford it. I don't have time. And we did things we drove up the 101 in California. I don't know if Highway 1. I don't know if you're familiar with California very much, but we drove up Highway 1, and that was amazing. I took him to a basketball game. I'd never been to a basketball game. I took him to a baseball game. I don't go to baseball games, but all of these things that I don't normally do, I found time and money to do them. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I live my life this way? Yes. So at the end of his stay with us, and when he was getting ready to go home, he invited my husband and I to come to Brazil. Like basically when he goes home, we would go with him. We would meet his family, his friends. Like he would show us like his country, kind of like, you know, you did that for me, I want to do that for you. And my husband decided not to go for various reasons, which we could get into if you wanted. But I was like, I'm going. Like, I'm definitely doing this. And it was like from the first day I got there, I just felt like I was home. Like I could never leave. I would not even miss my life. And I had never been out of the country in that way before. I've been to Mexico and stuff like that, but always in like a resort, like a bubble. Yeah. And when I went to Brazil, it was like, I mean, I was with the people. We were, you know, it was like not a resort trip, but we did all these things. I felt like I was in it. And I was like, I really felt like I would never go home and not even miss it.
Wow.
And of course I had to go home. But once I got home, I had this different feeling like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't mean like living, but I mean like in the US.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Like I felt like I found my calling down there.
Wow.
And so it's like from the moment I got back, I started researching like, how can I get myself down there? How can I live down there? How can I make money and live down there? And at first I had looked at, you know, I was married, and I had looked at things like, you know, I could teach English down there. I could work at an English institute. I don't know why the idea didn't come to me to like use, you know, my degree or anything that I'd already been doing. I had a really successful private practice, but I was looking at things like teaching English or working like a homestay or, you know, something like that. And so I was coming up with all these things, but my husband at the time was not into it at all. I mean, he was very like, well, how would I get all my things down there? He's very materialistic focused, like kind of like your typical American.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care about your stuff. Like, I want to get down there. I'm going to sell everything. Like, I want to do this. And it was more than just that. We had some issues for a couple of years, and eventually we ended up divorcing. But that was after I took a trip to Paraguay. My best friend at the time, her mom is Paraguayan, 100%. Paraguay, married an American. And so she returned to Paraguay a couple of times a year, and she invited me. She said, I know you loved Brazil. I want to, you know, show you more around the South America. Maybe you can come to Paraguay and learn my country. And I was like, that sounds great. Sign me up. So I ended up going for a month because I wanted to just be out. And when I was there, I met a lot of people, made some friends, met her family, like kind of felt a little more connected there. So when I got back, that was when my husband and I went through the divorce process. And I decided like maybe Paraguay is the better place for me to settle down because I feel like I have more connections there. So that was how Paraguay kind of came about.
Oh my God.
Once my husband and I divorced, I felt like I was free and I could do what I wanted.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this comes up over and over in these podcast interviews. It's like, if you don't have the same travel style with your partner, it's really going to be a problem, you know? So one person I talked to a couple of weeks ago was talking about trying to date and be a traveling therapist. And it doesn't even give them a chance if they're not into like the digital nomad thing, you know, that whole thing. That's so interesting. Okay. Yeah. And then the materialistic part, that keeps coming up. Like we're in 3 days, we're going to be official digital nomads. So we're getting rid of everything, but there is this attachment to our stuff. Like we even got a storage unit, and we know a year from now, we're not going to want any of this stuff, but we're putting it in there anyway, you know?
I had kind of a weird, I'm in kind of a weird position. I'm an only child and both my parents have passed away.
Okay.
And so I'm left with a lot of like, I have all my childhood thing, like photo albums or like just like sentimental things. And those are the kinds of things that I'm like, well, you can't just sell those and get rid of them. I'm the only one. Then nobody else is going to be responsible for that. So
Right.
I own two homes. One of them was my parents' home, and then the other one is my home that I bought. And my home that I bought has a big garage out back. So I ended up kind of getting lucky where I stored my things in the garage out back, and the renters don't have access or anything to that, and they rent the house out front. So I'm not paying for any storage, but I mean, there's things I just can't get rid of because
I
of
hear
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So, and the other thing that really stood out when you were talking is that when you first went to Brazil, it just felt like home to you. Like, what do you think about that? You know, I've been a couple of places like Sedona, Arizona. I went there and it was like, this feels like my place. You know, it just feels so good. So I just like, what do you think that's about? Like, do you have theories about that or?
I mean, I have a couple of ideas. One is that I mean, you know, when you're in the U.S., when you're an American citizen, I feel like I'm stereotyping a lot, but this just
It's
feels
okay.
that there's a lot of like fear mongering about going to other countries, or like, I
Mm,
mean, other than like going to a resort in Mexico or a resort
right.
in, some other popular
Punta
Caribbean, you know what I
Cana
mean?
or
Like,
something.
it's just a
Yeah.
lot of fear mongering. Like, don't go there. It's really dangerous.
Mm.
And once I went there and was like, it's not dangerous. Like, it's the same. Or,
Wow.
like they don't, yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like I had this awakening about like, I mean, sometimes I ask myself if it would have been another country, would I have had the same love
Mm.
towards that one country as I do Brazil, because Brazil was my first experience. But then I don't know, I'm kind of a little woo woo sometimes about
Me
like
too.
destiny and fate, and this was, where I was always meant to be, and this, I'm just kind of weird about that stuff. So I just kind of think maybe in another life that's where I lived, or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty woo woo myself, and when we went to Sedona, they do these like aura readings, and they do
Yeah.
like past life readings and all that. And I don't know, maybe she tells this to everybody, but she was like, you lived in this area, you were a shaman that healed people
Wow.
way back. And I was like, oh my god, because I really did have that feeling when I was there, like I just
Yeah.
connected for some reason. But I know that's pretty woo woo for maybe some of the listeners, but
No,
I I felt
I
connected.
get that. But
That's
I
amazing.
still, even though I'm living in Paraguay, it's like I know that someday I'm going to end up there. Like that.
Wow.
Paraguay is not my end game. I'm not going to stay here
Oh,
forever. It's
okay.
my home base right now, but I plan on living in other countries as well. In Brazil, like I know I'm going to end up there someday.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So when did you make the connection? Wait a second, I have a private practice. I can actually just see my clients while I'm down here. Like, how did
Right.
that happen for
So
you?
before I moved in September of 2018. I started going through a divorce in like September of 2017. So by February, I think it was more like January, of 2018, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move. And I took a class online for teaching English, like English as a second language, because I still thought that like that would be my way to
Yeah.
make money. I also signed up for, I'm sure you've heard of like Talkspace and BetterHelp.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I signed up for them. And then I have my rental properties in the US. So I was like, between these three things, I
Yeah.
should make more than enough money. Not as much as I was making in the US, but I didn't need to make as much as I was making in the US because I was moving somewhere with a much cheaper cost of living, and the American dollar goes a lot farther. So I was
Right.
like, I should make more than enough to be able to like live and travel. So that's what I did for the first year.
Oh,
I only
wow.
did Talkspace, BetterHelp, had my rental properties. I dabbled in teaching English, but it's just not I don't like it. It's not my thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a, English teacher major. I mean, I can speak English, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So I only did that for a couple of months and found that I could live on the other two things like quite well. And then the pandemic happened.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I closed my private practice in my
Okay.
hometown. I had a really successful business, and I closed done. Like I'm not taking anybody with me.
Wow.
I didn't want to do it. I was done. And
Okay.
but I still like had kind of an idea that like, well, if anybody wants to see me, I have all the means to do it, but it's not something that I was like really marketing for.
Yeah.
So I don't know, probably about 4 to 6 4 months before the pandemic, I started a Instagram and a Facebook thinking like, well, I'll do some advertising on there. And if I can get some clients from there, great. Cause I know a lot of other people do that, but
Mm-hmm.
I got none. I got zero. And
Wow.
I wasn't that upset about it because I had these other like sources of income.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic happened,
Wow.
and it was like things blew up for online therapists, or at least that's how
Right. Yeah.
and I put myself on Psychology Today at that point, and I think I filled up in like a month, like with
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And and it was here in Paraguay. We had to. I know that the U.S. says they were in quarantine, but here was like it was quarantine. We could not leave our
Wow.
house for 3 months. You were not allowed to go for walks. You couldn't. Everything was closed except the grocery store, the pharmacy, and the hospital. We could
Wow.
not leave our homes.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
for 3 months, I was like, well, I'm just going to make like a shitload of money because
Yeah, why not?
what else am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
So
did the same thing. I was like, I'll just work, I guess.
yeah, so I just made a ton of money. And then after like things started opening back up, I wondered like how long I was going to ride this wave of people wanting online therapy. And it's just kind of continued. I'm not working as much anymore. Like I don't, I only work really Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. My
Nice.
Monday and Fridays are free. But before, during quarantine, I was working 5 days a week, like 7 or 8 clients a
Wow.
day. But I've shaved it down since then. But that's kind of how that came about. I was like, well, now that people have a different idea of online therapy, because I felt like before people wanted more in person.
Yeah.
And now they almost prefer online.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, and me
So I
too.
actually don't do Talkspace and BetterHelp at all anymore. I'm
Okay,
only doing like online clients, and that's it.
nice.
Yeah.
Are you an insurance-based provider or private pay?
So I take insurance. I've always taken insurance. I was on panels when I had my private practice as well. And when I
Nice.
had left, I'm always kind of not always, but adjusting. Like I like to have like a plan B, like a just in case sometimes. And when I was moving down here, I was like, like the worst thing that would happen is I hate it and I have to move back in a year.
Right.
And people probably wouldn't even notice I was gone because I was really huge where I came
Yeah.
from, like
Wow.
very well known. And so I
Yeah.
was like, if I came back in a year, it probably would be like a blip on the map. So I didn't take myself off any insurance panels for that reason, just in case
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to come back. But then I started doing online therapy and I was on panels. So I'm still doing insurance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm all insurance based too. And a lot of people, that will be sort of a reason they give that they can't travel. And I'm like, you can, it's fine.
Oh, you totally can.
Yeah.
It's completely doable. I have an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
She was just my biller when I was in my hometown, but she's worked for me for like 10 years. And so
Wow.
when I left, like I said, like both my parents have passed away. I don't really have any family, so I don't really have anybody else to do these things for me. And I asked her, hey, could you like, I'm going to keep my PO box. Can you check my mail? Can you like, if I
Yeah.
need you to write checks for me, I added her to my business bank account. She can write checks for me if needed.
Oh,
Like,
awesome.
so I call her my assistant now because she does like everything for me in my
That's
hometown. Everything.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And and and what'd you say? Sorry.
she also does my billing.
Oh, wonderful. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. So the address you're using for the insurance companies, does that go through your PO box?
So I use my PO box. That's my mailing
Okay.
address. Insurance companies also want a physical address.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I left, I was friends with all of my colleagues in the building that I was working with. I know them for years, so they were fine with just like leaving my address there. My biller would
Nice.
come pick up the mail that came if any mail came. And then they ended up getting a new office space somewhere. And she asked them, hey, can I change Lisa's address to the new office? And they were like, yeah, no problem.
Oh,
So
perfect.
to be honest, I don't even know what my new mailing address is. She takes care of all of that and does
That's
everything.
amazing. Oh my gosh. That's so
But
great
I
though.
tell people that, it doesn't have to be like somebody you pay. Like I do that because I don't have anybody else. But
Right.
I mean, people could use a family member or
Totally.
a colleague maybe that's willing to do that. I don't know. But I mean,
Yep.
you could also do it for free.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many options. So I'm glad we're talking about that because I get that question all the time. Okay, so how's it going now? Well, I guess I have a couple of different questions. Like one, what state are you licensed in? Are you licensed in multiple states? What are the regulations for your state? I'm assuming it's fine as long as your client is physically in the state. I'm guessing, but I just wonder like how you went through that process.
Totally. So I'm licensed in the state of California. I'm only
Okay.
licensed in California. I don't feel the need to get licensed anywhere else because California, I mean, there is enough people in California that we're not hurting for clients.
I hear you.
And as far as like where I can be and where my clients can be in California and I can be anywhere in the world. The only thing that I tell people also to be cautious of is like the time zone that you're in,
Yeah.
because here it's not so bad. During like non-daylight savings time, it's 3 hours different,
Oh,
and
wow.
during daylight savings time, it's 5 hours. So, but 5 hours still
Wow.
isn't that bad. I've always structured my private practice where I work like 11 to 7 because I like to have
Mm-hmm.
my mornings to myself. And when I first started, I was scheduling people at like 8, 9, 10 because I thought that people would want that. But a lot of times, I don't know. Maybe I didn't have consistent clients, but they would no show me. And then I'd be pissed because I'm like, I
Yeah.
gave up my morning for you. So
Right.
I just quit doing that. I'm not
Yeah.
doing more
Good for you.
so,
Mm-hmm.
so when it's like a 5 hour difference or a 3 hour difference, depending if it's 3 hours different, I advertise like California time, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. So either
Nice.
I'm working like 10 to 5 or 6, or I'm working 12 to 7, which both
Wow.
are totally fine for me.
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, that works out well.
Yeah.
So, do you use scheduling software? Because this is a question that comes up a lot. Like, how do I navigate the time zones with scheduling and
I mean, again, everybody has to find what works for them, but what works for
totally?
me is, I don't know, maybe it's archaic. I make all my appointments myself with my clients, so I don't have like a software or anything that does it for
Okay.
me. I feel like I've got, like, especially before when I was doing Talkspace and BetterHelp and the other, like I have so much going, and I'm a very like set it and forget it kind of person. And if I have a scheduling software, then I feel like I would have to be in there all the time, changing times and making sure that it was
Yeah.
accurate. And I just can't live my life that way.
Good for
So,
you.
so I schedule like in the session with my client and I put it in my phone, just the calendar. And what I do so that it automatically does it is when I'm talking to the client, I'm saying, okay, you want to come next week at 8 o'clock. We're always assuming they're talking about their time. So I put it in my phone calendar as like 8 a.m. California time, and the calendar will automatically change it to my time. So when I look at my
Mm,
calendar, it tells me in my time, but I've
perfect.
programmed it as like California time, if
Oh,
that makes
that's
sense.
excellent. Yeah, that makes total
So
sense.
they only schedule with me. If they need to change an appointment or somebody wants an appointment, they email me. All my clients
Okay.
would email me, not call me. I do have like a app for phone calls, but we never make phone calls
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Now, do
yeah.
your clients know you're there, or do they?
Some of them, it's
Mm-hmm.
not something that I lead with. I don't like tell people, right off the bat that like I am living in Paraguay or
Yeah.
traveling. I don't tell people that. But if it's something like I feel, I don't know, relates to what we're talking about,
Mm.
or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I would say they asked me specifically, but even then I don't really mention it. I've
Yeah.
had clients say like, "Oh, where are you located?" Because now I get clients all over the state of California.
Right. Right.
And so people ask like, "Where are you?" And I'll say, "I'm from Reading," which is not a lie. I am from Reading.
Nice.
I just
Nice.
don't say like, "Well, I'm living in Paraguay." I just don't add that part.
Yeah. That's smart. That's a great way to do it. Yeah.
And it's not that I think they're gonna think weird or bad. I don't want to make that a topic if that's not what we're,
I get
like
it. Yeah. You don't
clients
want to
get
be about
really
you.
curious about like, oh my gosh, like, and then we're spending like 10 minutes talking about me and my story. And then every time we meet, they're like, oh, and how are things down there? Like they're just really curious. And I just don't want to make it about that.
I get that totally. Yep, totally. So are you a resident there or how does that
I
work?
am now, yes.
Okay.
As
Okay.
soon as I got here, I started the residency process. It's
Nice.
not hard.
Okay.
It just like you can get everything done that you need in like 2 weeks, but
hmm
then it's like you turn it all in, and the waiting process is like 9 months to a year. But as long as you get everything turned in, you get this like receipt, and then you're like good. Like if anyone were to stop you for overstaying or anything, you're
I
good.
see.
So at this point, I do have my my permanent residence card, and also like a Paraguayan ID.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do they have any restrictions or rules around you working as a psychotherapist there and seeing your clients outside of that? Okay.
None. This is probably one of the most unregulated countries. I'm sure there's others,
That's
but
what I'm finding though. Most of the countries are like, it's
it's
fine.
so unregulated here. They don't
Yeah.
even have I mean, they do have therapists, but they don't even have a board that regulates anything. It's basically you just go to school, you get a degree, and you're a therapist. Like that's how
Wow.
it works. Which means like, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell you. In the
Yeah.
beginning, when I first moved here, it was probably about maybe, I don't know, 8 months to a year after I got here. I had kind of missed like seeing people in person. Like there's just
Oh,
something about
yeah.
the energy of being in the room with somebody. I kind of missed that. And so I advertised on the expats page. There's an expats page
Oh,
for people living in Paraguay, like
wow.
from any country.
Yes.
And so I advertised, and I was like, hey, I'm licensed in the state of California. I'm a therapist. If anybody's interested, I had this office space that was like a rent by the hour here. And I did get a few clients from it. And the reason I could do that here is because there's nothing is regulated here. Like,
Wow.
there's nobody going to tell you that you can't do that. And when I checked with my insurance, my liability insurance, and they said we don't cover you there. Like if you see a client there and they like take you to court, if they take you to court in Paraguay, we're not going to cover you. They would have to take you to court in California, and then
Ah.
we would cover you. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's good, because like I can guarantee this process here is so like fucked up. Nobody's going to take you to court in Paraguay, especially another expat.
Yeah.
So I saw a few
Funny.
clients, but the problem with that, and I don't do it anymore, is that the expat community is so small. There are not a lot of expats living in Paraguay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm friends with a lot of people. I'm pretty outgoing, and I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends. And so what would happen is I would see my clients in my group friend gatherings. And I
Yeah.
don't want to have clients hanging out with me and my friends. So
No.
I quit that. I ended with those few people. I, just naturally, not on purpose. And I'm not taking clients from here anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it like now? What is your traveling life like? I mean, you're in
Right.
a probably an amazing place. Do you still travel? Do you want to travel? How does that
Yeah.
work now
So
that you're there?
the first year that I moved here, it was like, I was only doing better health and talk space, and I had my rental income. So I was like all over the place. I mean, we
Oh,
went
wow.
to Argentina, we went to Brazil a couple of times. We went lots of places in Paraguay. I mean, we were all over the place. And then the pandemic happened. I was here for a year and the pandemic started. And once the pandemic started, the borders were closed for almost a year. I think it
Oh,
was like
wow.
8 months maybe. And so we couldn't go anywhere, literally.
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
well, for that first 3 months, we couldn't leave our house. But once that opened up, I was like, I'm going to live my life. Like I'm not going to stop my life just for this. Like I was, following all the safety measures and everything. Here, it's
Mm-hmm.
you have to wear a mask. You have to wash your hands before you go into stores. They have
Oh,
hand
wow.
washing station everywhere. And it's like, you can't just throw a fit and say, I don't want to do it. Like this is a third world country with like, you do that.
Wow.
So I was like, I'm going to travel around here. If I can't do anything else, there's lots of things to see here. I haven't seen all of it. So, I mean, I think there's only one place in Paraguay I haven't been at this point, because I've just taken this whole time during the pandemic traveling around Paraguay. And then things opened back up, and we actually, for the first time in January, I just got back last week, we went to Argentina. That's the first time we've left the country.
Oh, wow.
Since the pandemic started. And we went to Argentina, and we were on a road trip for like 2 weeks, and it was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
We got back, and my birthday is in a couple weeks, and I want to go to Brazil. So we're going to go to Brazil. We're going to the beach.
Nice.
And so now I feel like we're like getting back into like
life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I was thinking today, I just recently came up with this idea. Normally what I do is, now that I have private practice, I'm working online now and I want to travel, it's like an extended period of time. I'll just, reschedule my clients so that I'm not working during that time I'm on vacation.
Nice.
But I was just thinking the other day, probably within the last month, I was thinking, like I could probably I'd try it and see how it goes, because I've never really been into working on vacation. But if we wanted to go somewhere for an extended period of time, like 3 weeks or a month, that maybe I would just like keep working and, kind of like do some. I've never done that, but that thought has crossed my mind in the last month about like, maybe I could try something like that.
Oh, yes, it definitely can. I always put them just in blocks.
I'm just really like, I think what I need to get past is I'm really big on separating work and personal life, and really big on like boundaries for myself and what like I need. And for me, like, going on vacation and traveling has always been like, I don't want anything to do with work.
I hear you.
Part of me also is like, well, that could open a lot more like opportunities to go somewhere if, I did both at the same time and just stayed longer. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's when I was in the brick and mortar, I would take like 8 weeks of vacation and wouldn't combine the two, and then it was like, then I was all online. It was like, okay, well, I could do this pretty much from anywhere. So I started, trying to figure out how to like keep the boundaries and still travel and still see my clients all at the same time. So now I just do like, I also work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, but I put it in morning blocks in the early morning, and then I have the whole day and, Monday and Friday to do stuff like this, or, just explore that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. So that's something I'm kind of like toying with the idea. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm thinking about it.
Cool. Either way is great, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, gosh, there's so many things I want to know about what you're doing. So, you were mentioning have you met a new partner, or are you traveling with like friends? Okay.
Partner.
Okay.
So one of the people I met when I had come to Paraguay in 2017, it's actually my friend's cousin. Remember my friend who?
Oh yeah.
Her mom. So it's her mom's nephew, I guess. But we ended up spending a lot more time together, and now actually we're married.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, and he's amazing. He's Paraguayan. He's amazing. Funny story is, when we first met, he didn't speak any English, not one word.
Wow.
And I didn't really speak Spanish. I had done some kind of like a Babbel course, when it wrote that stone kind of thing. And I had learned some, but not enough to get to know somebody or have a conversation. And he ended up coming, before I moved, he ended up coming to the US to stay with me, and I would kind of show him around. Wow. And when he was in the US, he ended up learning English in 6 months. Just from being with me and my friends. And he learned English in 6 months. And so now we only speak English together. My Spanish, I have conversational Spanish. It's not good enough to do therapy in, but it's conversational.
Wow.
And I wish that we spoke more Spanish together, but once you start in one language, it's hard to switch over to another.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. But
Wow,
yeah,
that's
he's the one.
wonderful.
He loves traveling like I do. He's up for anything. Like we're such a good match together, and yeah,
Oh, I love that. Oh,
yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Does he work remotely? Does he, because that's another
So
thing couples come up against is one's
great.
remote and one's not.
Yeah, that's a great question. After we met and I moved down here, he wanted to start his own business,
Okay.
and he got his import license to import things to Paraguay, which is Paraguay is landlocked, so pretty much everything
Okay.
is imported. They don't make a lot of their own things. They make some appliances, maybe, but they don't make a lot of their own stuff. So everything's imported.
Hmm.
And he decided he wanted to import car and motorcycle accessories and car
Oh.
oil,
Oh,
like
wow.
lubricant. And so that's what he's doing. And we came up with our I rather said this is a 5-year plan. Like, we'll see, like, hopefully you're making enough and being successful in 5 years that's when we've decided together we're going to get out of here and we're going to, start living in other countries. And I don't mean like where I've got my residency in Paraguay. I mean, like, maybe just for like 5 or 6 months, we'll go live somewhere else. And then we could come
Yeah.
back for a couple months and then we'll go somewhere else, like just really experience like the world like that together. So
Oh,
we're two
wonderful.
years, we're 2 years in already, and he's doing really well. The goal is that the guy he's got right now, he wants to kind of like make him more in charge, more kind of
Nice.
responsibilities. That way, when we go, Alex can do some things remotely, and this guy can kind of take care of everything in person.
Oh, I love that. How exciting.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
My
Hey,
goal too is I want to buy some more properties. I'd like to buy another property in the States. I'm not sure what state yet because now I'm not limited to California.
mm-hmm.
And I'd also like to own something maybe in Paraguay, Brazil, something like that. And just like
Nice.
have a bunch of rentals. And I don't want to work at all, to be honest. I
Yeah,
just want
I
to
hear
take,
you.
yeah, I
I'm
just
kind of
want
like over the client thing a little bit, I don't know if I'm burned out
to.
or what, but I'm kind of like,
I want
oh,
to make
two
some
clients sounds
passive
good.
income on rental properties, and I just want to live on that plus like
Nice.
the income my husband makes in his business.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Let's see. I want to just see if there's anything else. I always like to ask, are there any lessons you've learned in this journey or any like tips or tricks or anything you would want to impart upon the listeners that might help them if they're trying to do something similar?
Yeah, when I was first making this decision, the hardest part about it was the idea, and this is probably for people who have a brick and mortar business, was the
Mm-hmm.
idea that I was going to be like letting that go. I was leaving. And that was like, I mean, I made really good money, and that was like really super scary.
I
But
bet.
the desire to go do this other thing was stronger. And so I was like, I have to do this. I have to do it. And I think that that's again like those things that we create as like barriers for ourselves. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't that strong of a person, I could have easily let that be the reason that I didn't go do this thing that I love.
Yeah.
So for people who are thinking about it or want to do it, I tell this to my clients too. Sometimes we have to make uncomfortable decisions or do uncomfortable things to like maybe get us to this place that like we absolutely love. And I also tell people that it's nothing is final except for death.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is final. If you don't like it or it's not right for you, you can just make another decision. Like it's you just have to think of things. Like I had an idea that if I didn't like it, I would come back and I would just start again. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't the end of the world. It might have been uncomfortable for a little while, but I wasn't going to be living on the street.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. That's what I keep telling myself when we're starting this journey where we're just going to live in Airbnbs all around. And I keep thinking the same thing. Worst case scenario, we find a place we like and we rent an apartment or
Yeah,
something and we just go back to what we're doing. It's going to be fine.
totally. And the
Yeah.
fact that you're already online, I
Right.
mean, really, you're not going to lose anything by doing it.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that advice. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. So if people want to reach out to you, where would they find you if they want to learn more maybe about Paraguay or
I I do have an Instagram page, and you can link it on the podcast, but
Okay.
it's just my name, Lisa Jellison, and then MFT. So I'll send that to you. And the best way really is to email me, and I'll send you the email also. You can link on the page. But again, it's my name, Lisa Jellison, 517@yahoo.com. I'm also on Psychology Today, but I mean, I don't know how easy it would be to find me on there. So probably just enter my name and I would come up.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Email would be the best if somebody really wants to.
And don't call you because you're not giving out the phone number.
Yeah, don't call me.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so awesome to hear about your journey. I hope that maybe in a couple of years when you guys are doing the whole traveling thing, maybe you'll come back and let us know how that's going too.
I would love to. Yeah.
Yes.
Just send me set a reminder to send me an email.
I'm going to. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.